صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى. ولعنة الله على أعدائهم ومنكر فضائلهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, we finished saying 104, I believe, the conversation between Amir al-Mu'mineen and Nawf al-Bikali. Tonight, inshallah, we'll start a new saying of Nahjulbalagha, and the saying number that we're going to be looking at is saying number 113. Again, depending on the edition that you have, it might be a few before or a few after. And the saying begins with the Imam alayhi salam saying, وَقَالَ alayhi salam, لَا مَالَ أَعْوَدُ مِنَ الْعَقْلِ. There is no wealth that is more beneficial than the intellect. So that is the saying that we're going to be looking at. And the saying is about a paragraph long. So inshallah, I'm hopeful that tonight and tomorrow night we'll be able to complete our reflection on this particular saying. So the Imam alayhi salam, he says, لا مال أعود من العقل. Now, in this particular saying, the Imam is not speaking to a particular individual. This is not a conversation between him and one person. This could be something that he said to an audience, giving people general advice. لا مال أعود من العقل. There is no wealth, there is no money that is more beneficial, that is more useful than the intellect. Now, what does Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam mean by this? Again, when we try to understand what Amir al-Mu'mineen intends, no matter how deep we go, we're just scratching the surface. So I don't claim to convey to you the depths of what Amir al-Mu'mineen is trying to share, but hopefully we can understand at least some of the fundamentals, the basics of what he's trying to convey. So the Imam says there is no wealth like the intellect. Now there are a few things for us to ponder. Number one is, why do people seek wealth? Right? To appreciate what the Imam is trying to say, we have to first reflect on what makes wealth something that is worthy of our pursuit. Why is it that people want money and wealth? I think it's quite obvious. When you have money, when you have wealth, you're able to do things. You're able to do things that you wouldn't be able to do were it not for that money. You are able to acquire things that you perceive, at least, you perceive to be beneficial. When you have money, you're able to buy things that will, or you perceive that it has the ability to bring you happiness, to bring you stability, right? To enhance your life. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, he says that aql is more beneficial. There is no wealth that is more beneficial than aql. So in the same way that wealth allows you to acquire things that you perceive as beneficial, aql also allows you to achieve things that are beneficial. Now, what do I mean by this? We have many ahadith that speak about the importance of the intellect. In fact, we have many narrations from Ahlul Bayt that tell us that the first thing that Allah created was the aql. So for instance, we have a narration from our fifth Imam, Al-Imam Al-Baqir, salawatullahi alayhi, where the Imam says, لَمَّا خَلَقَ اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَ الْعَقْلِ, when Allah created the intellect. قَالَ لَهُ اسْتَنْطَقَهُ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala began to speak to it. He addressed it. قَالَ لَهُ أَقْبِلْ فَأَقْبَلْ. Allah said to the intellect, come close. He gave it a command. قَالَ لَهُ أَقْبِلْ فَأَقْبَلْ. Number one, when we look at this hadith, the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking directly to the aql shows that this is a very noble entity that is worthy of being addressed by Allah Azza wa Jal. لَمَّا خَلَقَ اللَّهُ الْعَقْلَ استنطقه وقال له أقبل فأقبل. When Allah commanded the intellect to approach Him, it obeyed. It came close to Allah. ثم قال له أدبر فأدبر. And then Allah commanded it to move away, and it obeyed. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what? قال وَعِزَّتِي وَجَلَالِي, I swear by my honor and my glory, مَا خَلَقْتُ خَلْقًا أَحَبُّ إِلَيَّ مِنْكَ, I have not created anything that is more beloved to me than you. This hadith highlights that the most beloved thing created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the intellect. And then He says, وَلَا أَكْمَلْتُكَ إِلَّا فِي مَنْ أُحِبْ, and I have not completed you except in the ones who are most beloved to me. The ones who are most beloved to Allah are the ones who are most complete, in their intellect. And then Allah says what? بِكَ أُثِيبْ وَبِكَ أُعَاقِبْ. It is through you that I reward, and it is through you that I punish. In another narration from Ahlul Bayt, we have this concept that العقل ما عبد به الرحمن واكتسب به الجنان. The faculty of the intellect, the aql, is that thing, that creation that facilitates our obedience of God. We are able to obey God because of the intellect. Because the intellect is that faculty that allows us to comprehend things. And the most important thing to comprehend is to comprehend and distinguish what is right from what is wrong. And the things that are the best for us are the things that Allah has commanded. And the things that are the most damaging to us are the things that Allah has prohibited. So the one who has the highest aql is the one who is essentially able to comprehend on one level. And not only are they able to comprehend, they're able to comprehend the most important things. And that is to comprehend what is moral and what is immoral. To discern between what is morally good and what is morally evil. And because they are able to discern and distinguish between haqq and batil, right and wrong, they act on it. And hence, through their intellect, they are able to achieve the pleasure of Allah, which translates into Jannah, which translates into eternal bliss. So money, wealth, it allows you to acquire things that benefit you in reality, or you at least perceive them to be as beneficial. The aql allows you to acquire something that has more valuable than anything in this world. And that is, through it, you're able to comprehend what God expects of you. And when you are able to comprehend what God expects of you, and when you're able to understand the difference and you're able to discern, you gain something that cannot be gained through money. Is there any rich person that can buy real estate in Jannah? No. So, when Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, there is no wealth like aql. The Imam is very precise. His words ring true. Because the entire reason why you seek money is because you want to be able to do things. You want to be able to gain things that are going to enhance your life. But aql is more valuable. It's the best type of wealth. Because through aql you're able to acquire something that has unlimited value. And that is nearness to God and Jannah. Right? No matter how much money you have, you're limited by your purchasing power. Only the aql is the type of currency that can allow you to purchase something as great as Jannah. So the Imam, he says, La mala a'wadu min al-aql. Because if you think about it, imagine someone has money, but they don't have aql. What will happen to someone who has money, but they don't have intellect? The money will end up destroying them. And you might have someone who doesn't have money, but they have aql. And because they have intellect, they can come up with solutions to lift themselves out of poverty. There are many people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them wealth, but they're not able to really improve their lives. They're not able to use this money to improve their dunya and gain the akhirah because they have no aql. They don't know how to make use of this wealth. La mala a'wadu min al-aql. And then the Imam alayhi salam, he says, وَلَا وَحْدَةَ أَوْحَشُ مِنَ الْعُجْبِ. And the Imam says, there is no loneliness that is more estranging than self-admiration. The worst type of loneliness is the loneliness of someone who suffers of ujb. Ujb is to admire yourself, to exaggerate your achievements, is to think so highly of yourself, to be so self-absorbed, to overestimate what you are able to achieve and not see that it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has facilitated your success. Someone who suffers of ujb, not only are they disliked by Allah Azza wa Jal because they're developing a sort of delusion where they attribute their success to themselves, they're also not liked by people. You know, human beings generally are not attracted to people who are self-absorbed. People generally, they don't gravitate towards people who are self-absorbed, who feel as though the universe revolves around them. They want to escape such a person because it's a very toxic quality to be so self-absorbed. You're not even able to maintain friendships. Because in order for you to maintain a relationship with anybody, there needs to be some degree of selflessness. If you are completely self-absorbed, you will not be able to maintain any relationship. And you're going to be alone. So, the Imam alayhi salam, he is saying that one of the ways in which people end up being lonely in this world is that sometimes they don't realize that there is a quality in you that is repelling people. Sometimes we find ourselves in situations where we look around and we're like, I don't have any friends. I don't have anyone who cares about me. And there might be situations where you might just be surrounded by toxic people. Right? Sometimes the problem is truly external. But the Imam alayhi salam, he's saying that sometimes you have to pause and ask yourself, why is it that I'm not able to maintain any relationships? Maybe it's not always the fault of others. Maybe I am self-absorbed and I don't realize it. When I sit with people, the conversation is always about what I'm going through. Whenever I get with my friends, the focus of the discussion is my problems, my hardships, and my pain. And if I achieve anything in my life, the focus is only about my achievements, my successes. It's never about anyone else. The Imam says, when you are obsessed with yourself, when you have this self-admiration, you're going to be a very lonely person. Because people, they gravitate towards individuals who are humble, who are selfless. This is why the Prophet had such a magnetic personality. It's because he wasn't a self-absorbed person. In fact, he would always prioritize the needs of others. And that's what made him such a great personality. That the Prophet ﷺ, even though he's the most important person in the room, objectively speaking, the Prophet is the greatest person in the room. But if an ordinary person comes to the Prophet gives his undivided attention as if this person is the center of the universe. To be able to do that means that you have to have humility. You can't be a narcissistic person, a self-absorbed person. So when we interact with other people, we have to be mindful. How much of my conversations with other people is about myself? I need to, activate a little bit of curiosity about other people. Ask people about what their background is, about their lives. Of course, don't be nosy, but at the same time, shift the focus away from yourself to other people. So the Imam alayhi salam, he says, وَلَا وَحْدَةَ أَوْحَشُ مِنَ الْعُجْبِ. And then the Imam says, وَلَا عَقْلَ كَالتَّدْبِيرِ. And there is no intellect that is more beneficial. There's no intelligence that is more beneficial than good management. Some of us, we have great ideas, but we're not good planners. I'll give you a simple example. Every community that I've been to agrees that we need to have a program for youngsters, that we need to have a youth program. Okay? When Amir al-Mu'mineen says, لا عقل كالتدبير, that there is no intelligence like good management, what the Imam means is, you see, it's easy to talk about what needs to be done, but how are you going to execute it? So for example, good management, I'll give you an example of good management. So you're in a community, and you think to yourself, okay, I want to hold programs for the younger generation. Okay. Before organizing a program and announcing that we're going to have a youth program, have you collected data about the demographics of your community? Are you doing a program for teenagers or for 5-year-olds? You need to know who's in your community. You need to plan. Sometimes when I go to communities, I ask them, do you have any data about, do you know the demographics of your community? Many of them, they don't know. What should be the priority? Depending on the makeup of our community, should we prioritize the purchase of a cemetery because we have an aging community, or do we have a very young community? What's the priority? Some of us, we don't even have the data to decide what types of programs we need to have. So that's an example of good management. You're doing your homework. Okay, you've decided that, okay, you have a community where there are a lot of little kids, elementary school. Okay. You want to do a program for them. You need to do research about what is the most effective way to educate kids in that age group. Do you go and bring a professor to give them a speech? No, no. You need to do your homework and find someone who has experience teaching youngsters. Okay. When do you want to hold this program? On a Wednesday, when these kids have to be in bed by 7 p.m.? Right. When you're a parent, you know how valuable it is to put your kids to bed at 7. When do you hold the program? So because you know that your target audience, they're very young, you probably need to do it on the weekend. Furthermore, are there kids in the community that might have some disabilities? How are you going to accommodate the people who have learning disabilities, for example? You see, the beauty of the Quran is that if you look at Surah Abasa, Allah reveals an entire surah in the Quran because a blind man was not feeling included. Imagine that. The entire surah is about someone who frowned and turned away from a blind man. Allah reveals an entire surah highlighting the importance of inclusivity. How many of us are like that? Do we plan in that way? So Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, he's saying that there is no intelligence like good planning. It's not just about holding programs. Sometimes we act as though it's just like a box, it's a chore, we're just a list of duties, chores that we have to tick. We're just ticking boxes. Oh, alhamdulillah, we did a program. Great. Okay, now after you did the program, did you collect feedback? How can you improve? What are the things that you did really well that you want to maintain? Where are the areas of weakness? Where were the issues? How can you rectify those problems? This is what we need. We need tadbir. And believe me, brothers and sisters, we learned this from the prophets, from Ahlul Bayt. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam was a strategic planner. He did not revolt haphazardly. When Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam is in Medina, before he goes to Karbala, where does he go? He goes to Mecca. Why? Because he knows Mecca is a place where Muslims gather from all around the empire. And he can raise awareness about what needs to happen. This was planned. The Imam identifies a problem. Maybe there are many people in the Ummah that are not aware of the gravity of the situation, that someone like Yazid is Khalifa. He's in Mecca raising awareness. He's planning. He receives letters from Kufa saying that we want you to come and lead us. Imam Hussein is not naive. What does Imam al-Hussein do? He sends Muslim ibn Aqil to verify the true intentions. This is tadbir. This is planning. If you look at the hijrah of the Prophet, did Rasulullah just one day get up and say, okay, let's just get out of Mecca? No, no, no. He sends one group to Abyssinia. He sends his companions. He already has people who have converted to Islam in Medina. As'ad ibn Zurara and others. He's going to leave at night and he leaves Ali behind. There needs to be a plan. If I leave, people are going to accuse me of stealing their amanat. I need to have a plan to return the amanat to the residents of Mecca. It would be, if we want to use modern language, it would be a PR disaster for Rasulullah to just leave and not return these trusts to the people. He's conscious of the integrity of his message. He leaves Ali to act as a decoy. so he can escape. He leaves Ali so he can escort the Fawatim, the women who were there. The point is that every aspect of the hijrah was planned. The Prophet was such a forward thinker. He had so much foresight that he doesn't put all of his eggs in one basket. He doesn't take his whole community to Medina. He leaves a part of them in Abyssinia. God forbid, if we get annihilated in Medina, there is still a group of Muslims in Habasha. This is tadbir. This is how you plan. This is how our leaders operate. They're not just thinking about what they're going to do tomorrow. They're thinking about 50, 100 years into the future. Some of us, we're very short-sighted. The only thing that we're thinking about is Eid next week and what day it's going to be. And we're fighting with each other about the moon sighting. We're not thinking about what is going to happen with the next generation. How are we going to deal with the advent of artificial intelligence? How is that going to impact the next generation? Have we spoken with experts? Are we thinking about the potential consequences of quickly adopting this type of technology? Or are we just fighting about, what day Eid is going to be? That's why Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, there is no intelligence like good planning. Some of us, we don't plan. We don't even plan. We don't plan with regards to what's going to happen next month, let alone in a year, 5 years, 10 years from now. So part of tadbir, good tadbir, is that as a community in Brisbane, the fact that you guys don't have a full-time Islamic school tells me that you guys are not thinking too far into the future. That's the reality. How are we going to raise Muslim kids if 35 hours during the week, their main murabbi, the main person who's giving them tarbiyah, is a non-Muslim who probably doesn't believe in God, who doesn't even know what gender he is? This is someone who's going to guide him to the straight path. These people they themselves, they're lost. So if our kids are in these confused environments for 35 hours a week, you think the Maulana is going to come and talk to him for 5, 10 minutes, an hour, and he's going to solve the problem? We don't have the stick of Musa where I tap your son's head and mashallah, he's become an enlightened person. So that means we have to think, we have to come together, we have to pull our resources together. We really should sense the urgency of the situation. Because with every year that passes, where this community, or any community for that matter, we have to build our own institutions. If you don't have your own educational institutions, that means you're depending on the government. And the government is not going to raise people who are going to be pious. That's just the reality. So if we don't build these institutions, we're always going to be relying on others. It has to happen. We have to be able to do this. So the Imam, he says, وَلَا عَقْلَ كَالتَّدْبِيرِ وَلَا كَرَمَ كَالتَّقْوَى. And there is no nobility like piety. In dunya, what gives you honor in dunya typically is how much money you have. Al-mal wal-banun zinatul hayat ad-dunya. There are some things that give you honor in this life and the akhirah, like taqwa. And there are some things, they will only give you honor in this life. There's nothing in the hereafter. Al-mal wal-banun zinatul hayat ad-dunya. Wealth and children, right? They are the ornaments of this life. Money can help you in this life. If you have money, people will respect you, right? The banks will, call you day and night. Everyone will be all over you. You'll be considered an important person. You will be treated with honor if you have money. In dunya, yes. But in akhirah, do you think Allah cares about how much money you had in the bank? In the akhirah, the currency of the akhirah, it's not dollar bills or cryptocurrency. No, the currency of the akhirah is what? Good deeds. Going into the akhirah thinking that your money is going to do something for you, it's like going to the shopping center and you pull out Monopoly money. Can you take this Monopoly money? They look at you and says, this has no value. What are you joking with us? This is Monopoly money. It's valueless. A billionaire, a trillionaire in the akhirah means nothing. It's like you're trying to ask to get through with Monopoly money. It doesn't have value. The currency of akhirah is taqwa. People in dunya, they are respected based on how much money they have. The moment your soul leaves your body, the system is different. Your honor depends on your level of taqwa. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. The most noble of you in the sight of God. In the sight of people, it doesn't matter. People are foolish. People don't know how to evaluate worth. In the sight of Allah, the most noble is the one who has the most taqwa. There's a beautiful story about Imam Zayn al-Abidin, salawatullahi alayh. I want you to picture this. Imam Zayn al-Abidin is in Mecca, and it's nighttime. At that time, there was no electricity, so it's pitch black. Maybe there are some torches. And the Imam is supplicating to Allah in front of the Kaaba. One of the contemporaries of Imam Zayn al-Abidin, he happened to be in the Haram at the same time. It's past midnight. And Tawus al-Yamani, who was living at the same time of Imam al-Sajjad, he says, I entered Masjid al-Haram at night. And I saw a shadow. I saw someone. I couldn't see their face. It was dark. But I could hear them reciting dua. And he said the dua was magnificent. It was such a moving dua. He says, I heard this person saying, Ilahi gharat nujumu samawatik. Oh Allah, my Lord, the stars of your sky have set. وَهَجَعَتْ عُيُونُ عِبَادِكَ. And the eyes of your creation have closed to rest. وَغَلَّقَتِ الْمُلُوكُ أَبْوَابَهَا. And the kings of this world, they've locked their gates. It's nighttime. وَبَابُكَ مُفَتَّحَاتٌ لِلسَّائِلِينَ. But your gate, oh Allah, your gate is always open. Everyone is sleeping, but you are the one who does not sleep. You are the one who is you are the king of kings, but you're also the most accessible of kings. And the Imam begins to cry, so humbled in his dua, begging Allah for his rahmah, for his maghfirah. So Tawus, he says, I was so moved by this dua that I wanted to go meet this man who was speaking to Allah this way. He says, I approached, and lo and behold, it was Imam Zayn al-Abidin. He says, I was shocked. I said to the Imam, Ya ibn Rasulullah, this is you who is crying when he supplicates to Allah? Ya ibn Rasulullah, your grandfather is Rasulullah. Your grandfather is Amir al-Mu'mineen. You're the son of Fatima al-Zahra. You're the son of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein. You don't have anything to worry about. You come from the family of the Prophet. We are the ones who should cry. Do you know what Imam Zayn al-Abidin says? He says, Ya Tawus, O Tawus, دعني عن كلام دعني عن ذكر جدي وأبي. O Tawus, don't talk to me about who my grandfather is and who my father is. فإن الله عز وجل خلق الجنة لمن أطاعه ولو كان عبدا حبشيا. O Taghus, Allah has created Jannah for His obedient servant, even if he is a slave, an Ethiopian slave, someone who doesn't come from a noble family, someone who doesn't come from a well-known tribe. وَخَلَقَ النَّارَ لِمَنْ عَصَاهُ وَلَوْ كَانَ سَيِّدًا قُرَشِيًّا. And Allah has created the hellfire for His disobedient servant, even if he is from the same tribe as the Prophet. Who my father is and my grandfather is, that's not going to help me. On the day of judgment, Allah is not going to ask me, "Oh Zainul Abidin, who is your father? Who is your grandfather?" Allah is going to ask me, "Who are you? What have you done?" I don't get to ride on the coattails of my predecessors. It's an honor to be the grandson of the Prophet, but that's not enough. It's not enough to just be from the line of the Prophet. It's not enough to just have the blood of the Prophet in my veins. I need to have the light of the Prophet in my heart. Who are you? This is important, brothers and sisters. It's not enough for us to just say, "Okay, we're Shia. We come to the Husayniyya." That's not enough. These are just superficial labels. Who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when there's no audience? Who are you when you don't have anyone to please? Who are you when you are angry? Who are you when you are surrounded by temptations? Who are you when you lose things? Who are you when Allah gives you? This whole dunya, this life, is designed to reveal who you really are. You know, people often say money changes people. No, money doesn't change people. Money reveals people. Money reveals people. Trials and tribulations, they reveal people. So the Imam is saying there is no honor like taqwa. Wala qarina. We continue with the saying of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen. Wala qarina ka husn al-khuluq. And there is no companion like good akhlaq. There is no companion like good akhlaq. You know, what makes a good companion? The definition of a good friend is someone who's always with you, who's not going to abandon you when times get tough. Imam is saying the best companion that you have is your akhlaq. Because even your best friend, they might come to the funeral. They might stand at the edge of your grave. They might stay for an hour and cry over you. But they're not going to spend the night with you in the grave. They're going to leave you. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, the best companion is your akhlaq. In dunya, your akhlaq will make your life beautiful. And after you die, your akhlaq will turn that dark grave into a garden. And your akhlaq will be there with you in barzakh. And your akhlaq will be there with you, advocating for you on the day of judgment. Your friend is not going to do anything for you on the day of judgment, but your akhlaq is going to be right there with you. Everything else is going to get left behind. Now, what does it mean to have good akhlaq? Of course, this would require a lecture in and of itself, but I'll just share one tradition from Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, salawatullahi alayhi. لما سئل عن حد حسن الخلق, Imam al-Sadiq was asked to give the definition of good character, good akhlaq. The Imam says, tulinu janibak. Number one, good akhlaq means that you're lenient. You're not lenient with haqq and batil. When it comes to God's laws, you're firm. But when it comes to interaction with people, okay, I'm sitting here, I always sit here. should I fight to the death to sit here? No. Someone comes and makes space. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا قيل لكم تفسحوا في المجالس فافسحوا. Make space. Be lenient. Today for iftar they served spicy food. So are you going to go and write a scathing email to the EC and then you're going to form a coup and try to overthrow the... Be lenient, be easygoing. You're more vocal about spicy food than you are about genocide. Be lenient. When it comes to personal preferences and food and where should we go, these things that don't violate Sharia, be easygoing. The Prophet, he gives a beautiful description, a difference between a mu'min and a munafiq. He says, Al-mu'min ya'kulu bishahwati ahli. A mu'min who has good akhlaq, he eats based on the desire and the preference of his family. Honey, what do you want for dinner? Whatever you guys want. Easygoing. وَالْمُنَافِقْ يَأْكُلُ تَأْكُلُ أَهْلُهُ بِشَهْوَتِهِ. The Prophet says, a munafiq is the one who, no, it has to be what I want and everyone has to eat what I want. Be easygoing. Be easygoing. Sometimes, I've seen couples literally get into fights because the food is not exactly what he wanted, or the rug is not the rug that she wanted, and this is not the ring that I... Fighting over absolute nonsense. Be easygoing. It's a very beautiful quality for someone to be chill. Just very chill, very relaxed. Doesn't make a big deal. The Prophet, and this is good especially for, maybe the Middle Eastern world. We're very particular about food needs to be on the table at 5 p.m. and if it's not fresh rice, we're going to have a problem. The Prophet, one day he comes home. Now, I'm not trying to tell the sisters, don't cook for your husbands. Don't get me wrong. We don't want to break up families tonight. The Prophet, one day he comes home. It's a long day. Of course, the Prophet, he's fighting jihads fi sabilillah. He's dealing with these ignorant people. It is a very difficult day. He comes home to one of his wives. He's hungry. He says, is there anything to eat? She says, no, I haven't prepared any food. I need time. It was in the afternoon. What was the Prophet's reaction? If it was people who are immature, it would become an argument. You don't care about me. You don't love me. This and that. Big time escalation. The Prophet, because he had not eaten anything the entire day, he says, it's okay, I'll do a mustahab fast. He says, okay, I'll wait until Maghrib, I'll do a mustahab fast. So he turns something that could have been escalated into a fight, and he says, okay, it's an opportunity for me to do ibadah. I'll do a mustahab fast. So now this is good for you guys to use. If you don't cook dinner, you could tell your husband to do a mustahab fast. وَلَا قَرِينَ كَحُسْنِ الْخُلُقِ. There's a beautiful statement from Amir al-Mu'mineen, and then we'll move on to the next sentence. Imam, he gives us the perfect formula on how to live. He says, خَالِطُ النَّاسَ. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, خَالِطُ النَّاسَ مُخَالَطَةً إِن مِتُّمْ. The Imam says, live your life in such a way, have good character, have good akhlaq, conduct yourself, interact with people in such a way that if you die, people will cry because of how much they will miss you. وَإِنْ عِشْتُمْ حَنُّوا إِلَيْكُمْ. And when you are alive, they yearn to be in your presence. If you have good akhlaq, people will want to be around you. It's the opposite of someone who has ujb, who has this self-admiration and who is self-absorbed. Then the Imam, he says, وَلَا مِيرَاثَ كَالْأَدَبِ. And there is some of us, and we meet with financial advisors to ensure that we pass on our estate, our wealth. We open up trust funds for our kids. We want to ensure kids. No, that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that that's wrong. They have enough money to go to school. They have enough money to purchase their first home. You financially secured them. Great. But have you also helped them inherit good adab from you? Have they learned manners from you? What's the point if you leave a lot of money to kids who have no adab? To kids who you haven't raised properly, believe me, they'll take the money and they'll take a portion of it and send you to the best nursing home. And you laugh, and believe me, this has happened. Because you didn't teach them adab. They might know that it's important to respect parents, but they don't know how to. This is adab. To know how to execute good deeds. And I'll give you an example of adab. We know that it's good to give charity to people. Giving charity is good. But how you give charity is going to be how you give charity is going to come down to adab. Do you give charity to their faces and then you take a picture and you upload it on Instagram? That means you don't have adab. There's a way to give that preserves the dignity of the recipient. Adab. Adab, for example, is if you walk into a room and there are a few chairs and you're a young person, you sit on the chair and there's an elderly person sitting on the floor. If you don't see a problem sitting on a chair, the mic is dying. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Is it breaking, the sound? I feel like it's a bit choppy. This is one of the issues, the international problems of our community. One thing that every center has in common is that the mic system is always an issue. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sorry to put you on the spot like this. Just this? وَلَا مِيرَاثَ كَالْأَدَبِ. If you don't see a problem with the fact that you, as an 18-year-old, as a 20-year-old, you're sitting on a comfortable chair and there's an 80-year-old man sitting on the floor and you don't even bother to offer your seat, that means that you don't have adab. If it's the time of iftar, yes, we're all fasting. I know you're hungry. But you should look around to let the elders eat first. Or let the little kids eat first. This is adab. If you are walking, adab means that if you're walking with your father, you don't walk in front of your father. You have respect. Imam al-Hassan and Imam al-Hussein, not one time in their lives did they walk ahead of their father. We need adab. As a child, when your parent, when your mother, when your father walks into the room, you should stand up out of respect for them. If you haven't seen your father comes home from work, your mother, you come home from school, you kiss her hand. That's adab. We've lost adab because we've consumed the dominant culture, this godless dominant culture. You know, how many of you guys grew up watching The Simpsons? Many of you guys probably watched The Simpsons. Maybe this generation doesn't know what I'm talking about. But it's a cartoon. One thing that always struck me about that cartoon, and I never used to watch it, but people used to talk about it. You see clips here and there. So what's the kid's name? His name is Bart. So now we're going to give you some knowledge about. Bart is the kid. His father is who? Homer. Homer. SubhanAllah, blessed names, meaningless names. Bart is the son. Homer is... Does he say, Ya Abata, oh my father, my noble dad? He refers to his father using his first name, as if he's talking to his friend. Now, why am I mentioning this? Because when you have programs like this airing for 20, 30 years, this behavior becomes normalized. Even if you know it's wrong, you've heard it so much that you don't even react to it. It doesn't even bother you. If someone was sitting in the presence of the Prophet or any of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, and a kid, a boy, referred to his father by his first name, I think the Imams, their face would have changed color. They would have been just disgusted by that type of behavior. This is your father. This is your mother. Adab. Sometimes we teach our kids everything, but we don't teach them adab. We have to also teach them adab with others. You know, there was a time when your teacher walks in the room and you stand up. There's respect for the teacher. You go to public schools today, everyone's dressed like they're homeless. The teacher walks in, this kid has his foot on the desk, and they're swearing, and they're giving the middle finger to their teachers, to their elders. And this is just acceptable behavior because, we have to be, sensitive to the feelings of the... We've elevated people's feelings so high that adab is not important anymore. As long as we use this liberal language that we need to create a safe space. What does that mean, safe space? Safe space basically means that no one can hold me accountable for my ideas or my words. That's what safe space means generally. That I have to be able to express myself, even if it means that I dress like a homeless guy in class and I don't stand up for my teacher and I'm rude. No, I need to express myself. This is not Islamic culture. There needs to be adab. And then the Imam alayhi salam says, وَلَا قَائِدَ كَالتَّوْفِيقِ, and there is no guide in your life like tawfiq. Tawfiq basically means تَسْهِيلُ طَرِيقِ الْخَيْرِ. For you to do any good deed, there are a lot of factors that have to come together. So for example, let's say that you want to come and pray Salat al-Jumu'ah. For you to actually perform this good deed, it's not enough to just have the intention of doing it. Maybe you have the intention but you get sick. You don't get the opportunity. Maybe you want to pray Salat al-Jumu'ah. You have the intention and you arrive, or you're driving and there's a car accident and the road is blocked and you don't reach the masjid. Maybe you come and you arrive at the masjid, but the imam is not there. He's sick. He couldn't make it. There are so many things that need to align for you to accomplish any good deed. There are many people who, for example, they go to Hawza, they have the intention of studying until they become mujtahids. 2 years, their mother gets sick, they have to go back. They have some health issues, some immigration issues, something happens and they're not able to finish. Tawfiq is when Allah brings all of these variables together to allow you to achieve success. And one of the greatest sources of tawfiq is goodness to our parents. I'll conclude with this final story, which is basically a reminder of good adab and one of the ways that Allah will bless our lives and we will be able to achieve great things. There is a great scholar by the name of Ayatollah Mar'ashi Najafi. He was one of the great maraja of his time. An erudite scholar. He was a marja, published many valuable books, had thousands of students who were studying under him. Someone once asked him, Sayyidina, you have lived a very fruitful life. You have been able to accomplish what few people have been able to accomplish in their lives in terms of knowledge and dissemination of knowledge. So they asked him, what is your secret? What did you do that Allah paved the way for you? He says, Allah knows best, and I don't claim to be something. But there is one thing that I have done in my life that I give credit. I think all of the goodness in my life came from this one incident that took place with my father when I was a little boy. He says, my father was a scholar, and he used to teach. One day, he taught his class. He used to teach in the mornings and in the evenings. After his morning classes, he came home and he took a nap. And before his nap, he told my mother that I'm going to take a nap, but I have an urgent meeting to go to. I have a class. I don't want to oversleep, so make sure I don't oversleep. So, Ayatollah Marashi says, my father, he went in his room and he took a nap. He went into a deep sleep. Your father so he doesn't miss his appointment. He says, I went into the room and I saw my father sleeping. He was sound asleep. He says, I looked at my father. He was very tired, but he looked very peaceful. He says, I felt bad. I didn't want to disturb his sleep. But at the same time, I don't want him to miss his appointment. So he says, I am trying to think to myself, how can I wake him up? Because sometimes when someone is in a deep sleep, if you touch them, if you jolt them, you'll startle them. So he says, I didn't want to tell him to wake up. I didn't want to use my voice. So I went to his feet and I very gently kissed his feet. On top of the blanket, I would just kiss his feet very gently until he would move his feet a little bit, and then he woke up. And then he saw me at his feet. And he asked me, my son, what are you doing? And I said to him, Baba, I didn't want to disturb your rest. You look tired today and I didn't want to startle you or scare you. So I was trying to find the most gentle. His feet. He was impressed by the adab of his son. Sayyid Ayatollah Marashi, he says, at that moment, my father raised his hands in dua. And he made dua for me that I emerge as one. He made dua that I would be a great scholar. He says, any book I have ever written, anything that I have achieved, all of the scholarly output that I have, all of it is through the barakah of the dua of my father. This is what we need. So in the month of Ramadan, if we haven't been good to our parents, we have to do our best to make them happy with us. And I know that there are some parents who are more difficult than others, but everyone has their test. If your parents are unfair to you, it doesn't mean that you reciprocate by also being unfair and rude. Your job is to be good to them, to serve them, to look after them. Their job is to be kind to you, not to overwhelm you, to be compassionate. If they are not fulfilling their duty, that doesn't mean that you fail in your duty towards them. On the Day of Judgment, Allah, He'll deal with them. He'll question them. But that doesn't give you license. If they are bad parents, that doesn't give you the right to be a bad child. That just means that now we have already left this world. Has finished. No. as a good son, especially the eldest son, with respect to his father, make up the qada. Whenever you give sadaqah, give it on their behalf. Whenever you go for ziyarah, do the ziyarah on their behalf. In fact, one of my teachers told me that every salah that I do, even though the salah is wajib upon me, I say to Allah to give the thawab of the salah to my parents. Imagine we become like this. If people have this mindset, believe me, all non-Muslims would want their kids to be like Muslims. This is how you export the religion of Islam to the rest of the world. It's not through slogans or chants, it's through akhlaq, it's through character, it's through the teachings that we have that make us into better people, better parents, better kids, and ultimately better communities. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد.